everyone. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
My name is Mark Weisman, and I am a Celtic-Norse shaman here in South Central Alaska.
How far is that from Ketchikan, Alaska, by the way?
About a 2.5 hour flight, give or
Okay.
take.
So tell me about your past leading up to what you do now as a shaman.
Well, my journey began many, many moons ago when I was a younger man. Went on a destructive bender that wound up in a heroin overdose. Um, and I was saved from that, obviously. Uh, During my recovery, I was led through a path of healing and growth. I discovered uh, I discovered religion, and then from religion, I discovered spirituality. And as I've discovered spirituality, I've really come to my indigenous beliefs, into my ancestry, my history, and have come to accept that as a way for me and many others at this point to find peace and just harmony and calm amidst all the hubbub of today.
How long have you lived in Alaska? All your life, you're born and raised from Alaska?
I was not. I moved to Alaska in 1995, 1994.
From where?
I moved from Arizona.
Cool. And you gotten into spirituality, I can tell, or religion. Tell me about the road that of being a shaman. What is a shaman for those who don't
Ah,
know?
the shaman. A shaman, by definition, is one who is called by the spirits. There is no, regardless what you may find on the internet, there is no real class for it. You don't go and get ordained like you do in the church. It's nothing like that. It's that you're called by the spirits to speak on their behalf and to help others to find their way, to find their spiritual connections. Um, and my path has led me from those days of my ministry when I was an ordained minister of the Christian church. I've always had questions. I question everything. I want to know the truth. I want to know what makes everything work. And it wasn't until I stepped outside of the limitations of monotheistic practices and discovered my true spirituality alongside my ancestry at the same time. That really led me to a place where now I fully understand, and I'm 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 at peace with the knowledge I have and with the spirits I interact with.
Wow, well said. And what is the 53rd generation of the Úlfhe? I hope I pronounced that right. To his ancestral gods. Tell me about that.
I am the 53rd generation of Úlfhe. The
Úlfhe.
Úlfhe were a shock troop, if you will, of early Norway, Denmark, Scandinavia. But the difference is that they had a connection to the Lenvedi. The Lenvedi, of course, being the spirits of the land, and they could understand and deal with them. So when they weren't at war and they weren't fighting, they were the shamans, they were the medicine men, they were the healers, they were the guides for chieftains throughout history. Would go on later to become probably fairly important men of their day before it was outlawed, of course, in the 1200s by Icelandic law. Um, and so that kind of led to many generations of my family have had to kind of remain in hiding, pushed it away, led other lives so that obviously we had, I think I have eight grandfathers along the way that were executed for this. So,
Oh,
um, but this is a different time. People are looking for answers outside of the norm, outside of what comes off the monotheistic script. And so, as I've discovered me and I've interacted with others, I've just found that these answers work regardless of what religion you wish to subscribe to. And so, these are some basic universal truths that, as we come to understand them, we know ourselves, and as we know ourselves, we can find it's easier to find peace and tranquility within the mind when you know yourself.
Well said, Mark. Tell me, do you do? This is an off subject, but it's related. It'll come back to it. So, frequencies and numbers. Do you see that that's in? Is that in the teachings? Different like God frequencies and different like 1111 and 369. Do those numbers pop up in your religion from out all of the religions you studied and been around?
The only numbers I like using, my wife has me counting calories now, but other than that, numbers don't really apply to me, or that I really embrace anyway.
Okay.
Frequencies do matter. Frequencies are very important, a very important part of our mental health. And it's a very important part of understanding how we manage those frequencies in our everyday life to find the energy of peace and the energy of harmony, and those types of energies can only come to us when we're in a more relaxed frequency, we're in a more calm state. um, and so just understanding that the frequency at which you're broadcasting to the world affects who comes into your life, what comes into your life, and what goes out of it. And so just understanding that, but I don't know that it's certainly not a driving force until you get past the part of knowing who you are and why you are the way you are, that you can begin to understand more, I think, more about how these frequencies matter.
I agree. Tell me about your advancement or advanced degrees.
Well, the when you go through ordination, you get obviously a degree in divinity. I have many other psychology degrees, honorary psychology. Most of them are honorary,
Good.
and they mean okay, they're fine. It was a wonderful class. It was a wonderful experience. But in the big picture of things, we are so unique. Every human being that's ever been born, that's ever lived, anything that's ever held the life force in its grasp, is so unique, is so different. And so our understanding of our spirituality and of what our values are and what's important to us, that too is very unique. It's very, very different than everyone else. And so to kind of put everybody in one big box is a challenge that you really don't. It serves no value. And so helping the people understand their uniqueness, their wonder, they're such a gift to existence. Understanding how powerful they are and how powerful they can be within their own mind, just it gets me up every morning and drags me all over this state and sometimes to other countries and other states. So it's just really been a wonderful blessing in my life, and certainly I would hope that others have found as much blessing as I've had.
Well said. And take me on a day of a life. Somebody gives you a call. I need healing. I need something from you to help me with being blessed, or however the scenario may go in your shaman career. What would you do?
Many times, I mean, there's a multitude of things that I do, whether that be, um, schedule some time that we have a conversation like you and I are having right now. We talk about some of those mental struggles, and I help to explain to them kind of where they are and what's going on to help them. to realize what's going on, and to help them manage their way forward. In other cases, I'll visit. I go and I visit people, particularly in our hospitals here, but I've done other locations throughout the state and country. And you visit with people and talk with people, and help them to in the same way. I also spend a lot of time being a Norse, which means that there are rituals that I attend, and go to these celebrations to celebrate this life that we have. Um, and on top of all that, then we have retreats and things of the nature where we just get a group of dedicated people who want to go to that next level, and we begin to have those discussions. So um, my day mostly is filled with hanging out with friends and people, and talking about how they can get to their next phase, their next step, their next part of their journey. um, and and then in the evening, I do a lot of things remotely with people all across the country, and help them in the same way.
Well said. And tell me if you can, because I'm an Eastern Star and I know it's certain rituals that cannot be discussed. The only thing I'll say is that we were covered up, but that's just the initiation ritual. So tell me about the rituals you do for your community, the people that need you.
Well, many of the rituals I perform are your standard hand fasting, baby blessings, excuse me,
You're okay.
home blessings, things like that, where we come in and we invite happy and warm and loving spirits into the home, into the people, and to just help them express their life. The thing about rituals, and I'm always teaching with rituals, is it's not following a rote script. You don't do rituals in a formal, organized. It should move you. It should, just the fact that you're there with the other people at a certain time and place, that should move you in a way to celebrate whatever it is that you're there to perform or there to enjoy. So when I do rituals, I let the spirit move me. I go and I've done weddings and the like, and said, oh, this is what it feels like. This is the music, the song, the people, the energy that's just in the room or in the place. Just commands that we do certain things, and that's the way we roll. Um, to appease those spirits, to be with those spirits, and to invite them in.
Have you ever saw a spirit, by the way, or
I have.
felt this? Oh, tell me about that before we.
There's been so many of them throughout my years of being a shaman. I've um, When my shamanic journey really initiated in earnest, if you will, I was visited by a by spirit, my ancestor, and I went into what's called a trance. And
Yes.
during the trance, I wrote a book. A book. Originally, the book was written in runes, in Norse runes. So I didn't understand the runes. And then to come to find out, after I translated all the runes, I couldn't understand it because it
Yeah.
was written in Dane or Danish.
Mhm.
So it would have been Old Eastern Norse.
Yeah.
So I had to translate all that before I could finally get the messages. At the same time, I was visited by other spirits through just a psychic channeling and not trances. I mean, I was conscious during these, and we began to work out what was said in the trance document, or I call them the trance documents, but were written in those trances, so that I could begin to. Uh, I'm a very image orientated person, so I needed to kind of see more how this thing applied. And so these channeled entities who would come and visit with me, they explained it, and they showed me in imagery how to what this all meant and why it was the way it was. And so this kind of gave me that foundation to move forward. As far as visiting with spirits, I visit with spirits at least once a week, um, because my great grandfather comes and visits, and we talk about whatever our show is that week. So it's a topic of understanding our spirituality. We break it down. We kind of talk about steps as to how to incorporate it into our lives, and that's what I go and I make a podcast about each week, that people can go and watch and hopefully take away something that helps them move to that next phase.
I was in Ketchikan, Alaska for like a week before I came to Seattle, and I would go out to the outskirts in the water because it's one way in, one way out. You fly on an island, and then you catch a ferry to the actual Ketchikan, Alaska. So I would go there and I would sing, but I was looking for. I wanted to go to Nome, Alaska, because I heard about Nome having different alien entities there. But I couldn't make it. Obviously, it's like 12 hours away. And I wanted to know, what did one of the beings, that just name one beings, what their name was, because you said one of them was a Norse, you written in Norse. So tell me about a being that you met that gave you the blueprint, possibly for the future of your life or the future of America or the future of the world. Tell me about that, because I know you have one.
Well, there's two primary entities that I deal with. One is my great grandfather. His name is Jens Peterson. He was born in 731 A.D. He died in 841, I believe. Um, in his physical form, he's now a spirit, and we communicate very frequently. The other one, of course, is the entity that I refer to as Draconis, and Draconis represents my spiritual self and who I am spiritually, and so his function with me is that he interacts with the spiritual realm when I have questions that I can't answer, that there's nothing in front of me. He can kind of go and ping the spiritual realm and bring back these answers that then I can then provide to whomever is asking. So those are the two main entities I deal with. The names of all the others, I mean, there's hundreds.
I believe it.
The night I had a vision, a real live vision in my backyard, and that vision there were I don't know, probably 300 entities standing around watching this vision unfold. So, I mean, the names and numbers, or the names, all kind of get convoluted a little bit.
I'm jealous a little bit. But I wanted to say you obviously is doing good. I have one last question. Have an evil entity ever try to fake like it was a good entity and try to come into your realm, your bubble, your world with you and your wife?
Um, I don't, and here's why.
Hmm.
I'm of the understanding that there is no evil.
Okay.
There is no evil. There is only neutral energy that comes from the universe. The
Hmm.
only evil is in human minds.
Hmm.
Um, and so when entities come to us and they behave in such a way,
Hmm.
there's a reason for it. Nothing's by coincidence, nothing's by circumstance. It is purely a learning ability or an opportunity for us to see things sometimes from a different perspective. Our lives, unfortunately, too often get caught in our way is the way, and it's working for me. I'm not going to break it, so on and so forth. I'm going to keep going. And we forget that there are more ways to achieve what we're trying to achieve in our lives. And sometimes these entities come into our lives, and that's what they're there to do. They're there not not to do anything else other than give us a different perspective, get us out of our rut and change our perspective, that we can address whatever challenges that were going on in our lives. Now we can address them from a different perspective or a different view and possibly resolve them easier. So evil is only humans, really. It's not even animals. Um, so they're not, that
Love
evil
it.
energy doesn't exist anywhere except in the human mind.
I agree. I agree. That's well said. And if there's a person out there that want to be a shaman like you, how would like what kind of advice would you give them? And I
Know
have
thyself.
a question. Huh?
Know thyself.
Okay. And
Um,
go
it,
ahead.
it, it there is no, like I said, you can go out on the internet and you can find hundreds, if not thousands, of courses to become a shaman. Well, firstly and foremost, you can't become a shaman. You have to be chosen to become a shaman. The
Mhm,
spirits have to choose you.
mhm,
You have to open your mind to be accepted, to be appointed. But nonetheless, your mission is to know yourself, to know what you're about, to know your values, to know your emotional responses, to know how you're going to react. Those are all things that you need to know, not as much just to get this level of shaman, but to be mentally healthy today in modern day world. The spirits choose those who will listen, those who can hear, because we don't listen with our ears, we listen with our hearts. And most often, in my case, I know it's certainly the case, is it was my direct ancestors who came to me and began to speak and began to just tell me, teach me the ways of spirituality and spiritual growth. And and that's how it began. As I was looking through history at my family, going, is there anything exciting here? And lo and behold, I would discover that indeed, um, I started doing tracing. I found my grandfather, my I want to say my 11th great grandfather, um, on my father's side, and someone had written a book about him.
get out of here.
This is like hundreds of years ago. This is not new, um, but in the book, they had listed, for public display at the time, they had listed out his his genealogy, his history, where he had come from, and where. So I got literally like 20 generations from that book that was written in Europe somewhere around 1,000, maybe 1100 AD, and so we just got everything. So and so and of course at 700 AD, it's kind of hard to find records.
I know.
We kind of run a dry. So now I'm relying now almost solely on my ancestors to inform me. Hey, teach me who your fathers were, who your fathers were, and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's just been a wonderful journey of learning both my family and my spirituality, and coming to understand that they're one and the same. So
Well said. Thank you. Where do you see, last question, where do you see yourself going in the future with being chosen as a shaman?
I see myself in the same role I'm in today.
Mhm.
Um, I'm going to do this until I depart my physical form, and that is to help people. There are many people whom I've encountered one way or another who need help, who don't understand the balances within their own mind, and a lot of them are afraid to step into the darkness a little bit, step out of the mainstream, what's everybody else is doing. Um, and it's those people whom I'm trying to reach and say, you know, you're missing 90% of your existence. You're missing because you're doing religion and forgetting, maybe not even comprehending, that there's a spiritual aspect to religion that you've missed. You've overlooked it. You've done the road exercises. You go to the room on Sunday. You do the little drills. But that's not spirituality. That's behavior modification. That means nothing. What's your personal relationship like? What kind of relationship do you have with these spiritual entities who are indeed a part of your life every day? And if you can't answer that, you miss the spirituality bus.
Okay, I'm sorry I have to ask this very last question, but do you have any children?
I do.
So they're going to end up shamans, chosen ones, so leaving a generation going?
We'll see. We'll see.
Good.
They they all have their own, every part of our lives is part of our spiritual journey. Whether it seems like it's not spiritual at all, it is. It's all part of the journey. And so they all have their journeys that they have to go through. Whether the spirits will choose them and to represent them, to be that next generation of spiritual guides, we'll wait and see. The younger ones are still in their teenage years, so they've got some time to go. The older ones are they're well into their lives now, and we'll see what the spirits call to them.
How can the people reach you? You have your own podcast, right?
I do.
Do you invite people on there? I just have to know that.
I do. Well, I kind of do.
Okay.
Our weekly show, which is produced on YouTube, a video production, that is just a teaching. It's just a lesson of whatever. And so that one, no, we don't invite anybody because we're trying to get a lesson out. But on the same day, because these are all released on Wednesday mornings, so tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, they released Alaska time. And then that same night, I'll have what's called an online session where I go to what used to be called Wisdom, is now called Noon Vibe. And on Noon Vibe, they can actually get on there and they can actually get into the podcast, get into that recording where it'll wind up as part of our recording. And they could actually talk, ask questions, voice their opinions, whatever they'd like. A kind of open show that, no pun intended, but it's kind of like open mic night, that they can get in there and say whatever they need to, whatever's on their heart. And again, that's open to the public. It's a wonderful platform for discussing spirituality and other spiritual questions and comments, concerns.
How many listeners do you have before I let you go?
Oh gosh, there's a lot. What do you think? 1,000? No, really? Okay, 1,000.
Cool. I love it. So, how can the people find you?
The best way to get a hold of me is through our website. That's kind of the central hub of all of our functionality. And that's at akúlfhethnar.com. It's AKULF as in Frank, HED as in dog, NAR.com. And that's kind of the central location for everything about the show. There's also a link there to my counseling service, which is akoutlaw.com. And there they can get information about setting up times and getting scheduled to where we can have conversations and
Thank
hopefully get them some answers that they've been looking for.
Thank you so much for joining my show. Stay on the line for just one more minute. Y'all take care, man. Mark Weisman. Thank you. Shaman.